The NFL is where we begin, and the big news coming down yesterday afternoon, the NFL suspending Tom Brady without pay for 4 games for conduct detrimental to the integrity of the NFL relating to the Deflategate controversy. The league also fining the Patriots $1 million and docking the team a 2006 first-round draft pick and a 2017 fourth-round draft pick. Well, we're working plenty of sound, and we've got a great guest joining us today, but just for some perspective before we get into our thoughts on the idea, Brady's 4-game suspension, the longest for a quarterback since Terrell Pryor's 5-gamer in 2011, and the longest for an active starting quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger's 4-game suspension in 2010. Don't forget, that was for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. We'll get to Trent Dilfer's thoughts in a second, but Danny, I'll start with you. This is as big a star as we have in the game. It's the number one sport in the country. You hear that the best player in the league's been suspended for 4 games. That definitely is going to sound the alarm bells. My first thought is that it seemed excessive. What was your reaction?
It's definitely going to blow up Twitter is what it's going to do, and it did yesterday afternoon. I thought it was harsh. I thought they would come out with 1 or 2 games. I thought it was harsh, but I think it's fair. Like, if you're Roger Goodell, you have to do something. You can't sit there and look at the Wells report, consider the history of the Patriots, everything that they've done, and look at it and just say, let's just give him a slap on the wrist, a small fine or whatever it would be, or a fine for the team. So I think he had to do something. And I think he made a statement, a very clear statement that, hey, we have rules for a reason, and you better abide by them.
So pretty much you're saying, is it the addition of what happened with Spygate as well?
Yeah, I think the addition of that, and I think absolutely the fact, and Troy Vincent stated it very clearly, that Tom Brady was not fully cooperative. That fact that he would not hand over his cell phone, give them full access, be completely honest. Because, look, if you don't think he had intimate knowledge of this and had, in some way impacted the air pressure in those balls, your head is buried in the sand. If you're a Patriots fan and you're saying, no, he's telling the truth, he's not. He had a knowledge of what is going on. I firmly believe if he would have come out after the fact and said, look,
Agreed.
I like the way these footballs are when they're a little underinflated. I tell the ball boys to do it a certain way. We weren't aware that they were going to be illegal. I made a mistake. We'll pump him up the next game. There's no way the NFL suspends him for a Super Bowl. They would have given him a little slap on the wrist, and it would have been water under the bridge. Now it's this huge issue that I feel has tainted his legacy.
Do you think it warrants the biggest fine in NFL history?
Well, I was going to say this. The
bounty scandal was $500,000.
Right, but it's chump change, right? No one
agree
would pay
with you.
money. But for $1 million is the least harmful aspect of this. Arguably, the Brady for 4 games is big, but a first-round draft pick is huge. You're losing a key impact player. So I think a debate could be made for what's more impactful, Brady for 4 games, a quarter of the season, or a first-round pick.
Again, and he's trying to, when you look at Roger Goodell, you try to make sense of the suspensions that he's been doling out. It's been a rough year for the NFL, right? They're trying to do this, and he's in a no-win situation because if he gives him a slap on the wrist, people are criticizing him, saying, well, he's harsh on certain guys, but here's his favorite. He's friends with Robert Kraft, and here he is, giving him a slap on the wrist. Now he comes down harsh. Well, look, he gave him more of a suspension than he did for Ray Rice. He's really in a no-win situation. But I think when you look at what happened with Sean Payton, with the New Orleans, when he says, I didn't know anything about it, he had to do something to the team as well, to Belichick, penalize them, because if you're going to have this standard of, hey, you're the head guy, you're supposed to have knowledge, I personally don't think Belichick knew about it. Because this is very much a quarterback, ball boy, equipment manager relationship thing that Belichick's probably that's the last of his worries is what pressure the balls are. I really think he did not know about it. But, again, Goodell trying to stay as best he can consistent with a policy throughout. That's why I think he had to hit the team, too.
A couple of things. Why do the ball boys have to fall on the sword?
Yeah,
I definitely got thrown under the bus. There's no question.
And that's where, I agree with DK on what he was saying before about Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady, it's your job as a leader to take ownership of the responsibility, and it shouldn't fall upon the ball boys.
No question.
Who now don't get pay, and they're just doing what they're instructed to do, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So all of a sudden they have to fall on the sword. Number 2, there's a name, I think Tom Brady is one of the best quarterbacks of all time, right? Is that fair?
Yes. Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yep.
So I'm curious to hear what Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, some of these guys have to say. But, we get in big into this thing about what is the legacy of Tom Brady. And I'll give you what I think about it the other day because I was throwing around the name Bill Clinton. Right, Bill Clinton, when I hear people talk about Bill Clinton, maybe one of the greatest presidents of all time. Mm-hmm. You ready for Bill Clinton's line? I did not have sexual relations with that lady. right?
Yep. Right.
So pretty much that's what he made his comment, and everybody killed him for it, but he's still considered one of the greatest presidents of all time. Right. I don't think it's going to affect Tom Brady's legacy at all, Mike.
Well, see, but really? I think that does.
If he wins, if he comes back, then he's going to appeal. If he gets 2 games or 3, he comes back and they win. All of a sudden, I'm telling you, that's what we do as an American society.
People always know he got suspended. Right. Terry Bradshaw never got suspended. John Elway never got suspended. Joe Montana never got suspended. And I think the Clinton analogy, to use that,
it's his legacy.
It is part of the legacy. Like, nobody says, like, immediately when you ever find a detractor of Clinton, the first thing they bring up is like, well, Monica
But did that stop him from being a great president?
There's no question, but it's part of the package.
And what percentage are we talking about is underneath the legal gauge?
Right? It's like very slim margin. Very slim margin. And
so now he's a cheater for life.
But for me,
a cheater,
but he did cheat.
Yes,
and he did so willingly, and he obstructed justice.
For me,
he threw the ball boys under the bus.
I totally
agree with that.
For me, it's a dumb rule in the first place. Look, when they decided to let the quarterbacks, I think it was 2007, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, got together and they said, look, when we travel on the road, we don't have our own footballs. We don't like the way they're given to us because the NFL balls, when they are out of the box, handed you in a game, are almost impossible to throw. It was something I really struggled with, among a lot of other things, playing in the NFL. But they pump them up to full pressure, which I think is 13.5. They have like this film on them that really makes the ball slippery, and they don't get fully worked in until a couple games or a couple practices with them. So Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, they get together, they get a collective group of quarterbacks, they petition the competition committee, say, look, why don't you let us work the balls in? And I totally agree. The same thing here. Why not let the quarterbacks have the ball pressure, whatever they like it? The NFL likes offense. They like the quarterbacks to play well, so let them do it. Like, I think it's a dumb rule. To me, the bigger issue is the way Tom handled it. From the initial radio interview when he kind of laughed it off and said, this is a joke, to the next one when he acted like he could care less about which ball he was handling. I just give me the football. Like, that, to me, was, just, it's not the truth. And I love what Mark Brunell, when he came on right after that, I don't know if you guys were watching that, he was very emotional about it, saying he lied to him. That's exactly the way I feel.
And one of Brunell's biggest points, which Danny is articulating, is that there's no way a quarterback would not know. It's very specific in terms of the way you'd want the football, and ball boys just wouldn't do that unilaterally. They wouldn't do it without the permission of the star quarterback. What's Trending Now is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy, new improved taste. 10 great flavors. Have you tried 5 Hour Energy shots lately? It's Adnan Burke, Jay Williams, and Danny Cannell in for Green and Gold today on Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. The thoughts of Trent Dilfer, one of the many NFL analysts you'll be hearing from the program today on Brady, the suspension, and Deflategate.
My mind's spinning, I think, like everybody else's is. I think there's a lot of layers to this. I feel as if it's harsh by any standards. 4 games, $1 million, draft picks. Trying to put myself in Tom's shoes. I'm trying to put myself in league shoes. I'm trying to put myself in the public shoes. And no matter what shoes I put myself in, I don't think it's an appropriate punishment for what's being accused.
And that seems to be the overriding thought. As always, you can tweet us at Mike and Mike and let us know your reaction. Do you think the suspension was too severe for Tom Brady and the penalty too severe? Our producer, Ray Netchie, chiming in. For those using the Montana, Bradshaw, and others as a comparison, they never had these rules about the football to deal with. Does that change anything a little bit?
I think to a guy or to a fan even with football knowledge, people are going to be like, yeah, it's not that big a deal. I mean, hey, if I was Tom Brady, if I could go back in my career and deflate a football, I would have. I would have tried to do it. Like, I would have tried to make.
Does it make this? Tell people. Does it make that big of a difference?
Absolutely, it does. Because it's a preference. Some of it's mental, but some of it is fully functional. Where if you have a ball that you can grip in cold conditions or whatever conditions that you are faced with, if you can grip it and throw it accurately with precision, which Brady does better than anybody, that is an advantage. Now, it might be a slim advantage, but think about it this way. If you're out there and you're a quarterback and you're struggling with the footballs, you might still be able to complete passes, but they might be a little bit behind the guy, so it slows him down. He gets tackled immediately. Where if you are precise, if you have exactly the way you like it, you can. I mean, you watch the NFL, you see how close those windows are. How it's a game of inches. I mean, you look at how precisely these quarterbacks can throw the football. If you give them that much of a margin, that much of a little slight edge, it's an advantage. So he definitely has had an advantage. And my problem with a lot of Patriots fans are saying, well, it didn't look like it bothered him in a 45-7 blowout versus the Colts, and he looked fine against the Seahawks with fully inflated balls. To me, people are completely overlooking the Ravens game in the divisional playoff. Second half, 20 degrees, 8-degree wind chill. They only ran it 4 times in the second half. Brady completes 70% of his passes. They threw it. That's their game, too. If you watch their offense, a lot of short, quick, precise passes. To me, that was a game where I'm thinking, if he has balls the way exactly like he likes them, that is a huge advantage for him. And don't tell me that it's funny because you get Patriots fans who are all fired up saying, and even Don Yee, Tom Brady's agent, said this seemed like the NFL was colluding with the Colts, that they wouldn't tell. Are you kidding me? You think they're going to say, guys, we think you're cheating. Can you stop doing it? Right. No. If a manager in baseball thinks an opposing pitcher has grease or something on the ball, he's not going to go tell them first. He's going to tell the umpire, go check the ball. It's exactly what happened. Yeah,
we saw that with Michael Pineda last year, the Yankees. Yeah. He had the grease all over his neck, which you thought nobody could see.
Right here.
No one's going to spot this pine tar. I think I'm all right. We'll talk more about the issue of legacy and get into Jay's thoughts about the fact whether or not this taints the legacy of Tom Brady. Plus, you'll want to hear Keyshawn